Okay. Just making sure everything's connected. I think we're good. Cool. All right, we're going. Awesome. Well, see, we've got somebody here. Feel free to say hey in the chat. Yeah, welcome. This is our eighth installment of this live build series. I'm back at it, and I'm committing to a new schedule. Before, I was doing like a stream whenever I felt like it thing, but I want to try kind of every other week, see how that goes. And also, since the seventh stream, like months ago, I've been, putting a lot more energy into writing my blog, kind of tending to a little newsletter, and something different that I'm doing to also encourage me to, visit this stream series more is give newsletter subscribers the option to join me live in the file. So just a little bit of a perk, something that encourages me to do this more often because having other people in the file, just makes it more fun. And, as good as I like to think I am with Figma, there's going to be stuff that I get wrong that or moments where I get stuck. So, there's some really smart folks who subscribe to my newsletter. I follow them around in other spaces like Twitter. So having their brains involved in the process, it's exciting for me. So yeah, if you want to be live in the file with me, get on my newsletter. I've got a link in the description, I think. If not, I'll update that after this stream. But yeah, folks also get to vote on what I'm going to be working on in upcoming streams. And so I did run a poll. Let's switch over to that. So giving folks two different options each stream of what they want to see me work on. And for this one, last time I was working on this ready to assign button, which has buttons and modals and all sorts of stuff inside of it. But I want to move on to another big chunk, either this budget table header, which has a couple buttons inside of it, and then some controls for kind of adjusting the view of the table below. There's not a ton going on in here, but tables are crazy. So that could be a whole thing. Or moving on to this entire, like right-hand side panel where we've got these collapsible sections. There's button groups within those. And yeah, when it's kind of dynamic. I sort of likened it to Figma's design panel, where depending on what you have selected in the main area of the app, the information over here is going to change. The actions and controls that you have available sort of adjust. So yeah, you can see when we've got something selected here, we've got this new target section that shows up, and it probably gets even more complicated. We're looking at a lot of empty states right now. So yeah, there's even more than that. But let's look at the poll results. All right, budget table header, we got one vote. But that's it, yeah. So we will be doing a lot with tables, which is exciting. So let's first kind of take a close look at this. I'm seeing, icons. My first thought is over in the Figma file here. I know icons have been a little bit of, they were a tricky thing. I had to kind of stop building something in a prior stream just to collect these. So I think we have most everything we need. I need to get these little kind of curly arrows for undoing and redoing. I think we've got the plus. We've got a plus, but not the plus. This one is filled. And then this little kind of look back recent moves thing. So I might use some placeholders for now and then do icons later. Collecting these vectors isn't the most thrilling thing for a live stream. So but also happy to show how I've gone about doing that. There's a plugin that I used to kind of copy the SVG path and then get it into Figma. We've got some buttons over here that kind of reveal, you can see there's these lines beneath each label in the button. And those, let's see, when we actually have data in here, those are going to show your progress towards any targets that you've created, but maybe further down the line, and that's in the body of the table, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But just to explain, why you would even have this larger view versus this compressed view. But this is kind of reminding me a lot of if any Gmail users are watching, Gmail offers a similar thing. Like, do you want, I think it's called like comfortable or compact, or there's some third option in there. Similar concept. And then finally, we've got our headers here showing us, you know, what are these columns? What do they mean? And then there's some collapsing functionality here. If we wanted to collapse the contents of each of these category groups is what they're called. And we can, of course, select everything here. And we are going to need this sort of indeterminate check, right? Because we can unselect some things, but still have other things selected. So good to know. Yeah, let's first, we'll start at the top and the left. So looking at this, we've got budget table header, row group, and then 2 divs. So this is named budget toolbar. And these guys are just all in divs. The buttons are in their own group. Easy enough. I just want to see if there's anything in here that, you know, might change the way I build, but at the very least, I just want to get the names of like the classes. So that way the components can line up to those. Okay, and these are buttons, and we've built buttons before. Let's take a look. Do we have, in fact, those particular buttons already built? I don't believe so. A more efficient way to check this would be just looking at my components. Do we have anything called button? I'm sure we do. We've got a few. But these don't look like anything we need. So yeah, yet another button. And you know, these are using like kind of a global button class, but then they also got like a very, very specific budget toolbar. You know, this is just going to be used here. Add category. That's, I believe, the only place in the interface where you would find that. So, all right, well, first, let's just start with building those buttons. It's going to be really, really simple. And there's some buttons over here. I need to probably clean the space up a bit. But yeah, we'll start with the label. And let's zoom in here. What are we working with for typography? I'm remembering this has been tricky because everything's in like M's and Rems, a mix of both, I think, and trying to find the text size equivalent, 12.8. Yeah, that's been tricky for me. Referral link might be close. It's 12 pixels that I've got in Figma, but the referral link one, you know, that's this guy. That should be, oh, it should be using referral link. Let's get that in there. Where that shows up is the very bottom of the right-hand side nav here, down in the bottom left. And I'm gonna just start with that, you know. Thankfully, we can always update things and have that cascade through all our instances. So I'm comfortable just going with a good enough first guess just to get moving here. And same with the icons, like I said, we'll just use what we have and I can get the actual SVGs later. So I'll grab a copy. Of course, we're going to use auto layout, make sure everything's aligned proper, and let's see what spacing we're dealing with here. So this SVG has some right margin of 4.8. I'm going to round it up to 5. And that's our guy. How about like padding elsewhere? Okay. So it's got, yeah, just to like kind of keep some distance from the other buttons. So the divs don't have anything going on. They are controlled, they're probably like set to hug, right? And they are controlled by the size of their contents. I wonder if I will end up doing the same in Figma. I guess we'll see. We'll have to see kind of if these guys are, yeah, using like the same kind of values. Let's take a look. So that's 8 and 16. That's 8 and 16. Just double check here. 8 and 16. Oh, too far in. Last one here. 8 and 16 all the way around. So let's start with that. We've got 16, 8, and we'll call this is an interface representative. So this would be button, and I mean, so, you know, in the class names here, they're using really specific, like, you know, specific to each button. Recent moves, open modal container, or undo button. I think I'm going to just call these budget or button slash budget table header for now. Again, we can change our minds. And yeah, so we've got, we do need to support a disabled state for these undo redo buttons. We haven't made any moves. And just to explain what a move is real quick. So you can see I've got $1,000 here in my fictitious budget ready to assign. If I assign 500 of that to rent, well, not even a good example. Let's do something else. Here we go. Okay, education, right? Maybe I want to take some sort of language class. And I assign $500 there. But then I decide, you know, I change my mind. My goals have changed. And I'm like, actually, I think I want to move $100 of this 500 to fitness because I'd also like to take some sort of class. And so that would be a money move. You can see now I've got undo available to me and recent moves, which used to have kind of like it was trying to encourage me or explain what the feature was and then encourage me to do it. Yeah, so this has changed too. So I've actually yet to use this personally, but let's undo. First, I want to get this architecture right. So yeah, we are using one of our blue colors. Oh, and there's so many different shades. How to know which one? I'm just looking to see, do I have anything else? Like, have I used this before? How do I figure out what blue that is exactly? And I might just have to do the lazy thing, digital color meter. We're gonna get close. I'll paste in the hex code. Oop. We'll throw this behind the component and see if we can pick something that makes this essentially disappear. So now teal 650, that's a bit too green. Getting closer with teal 500. Ooh, even closer with 600. Which one are you? Oh, it's not any of our teals. This is just straight up blue. That makes sense. Cool. So we've got that. We're gonna need, like I said, a disabled state. We probably need a hover state too. Let's get rid of that guy. Yeah, on hover, gets darker. Oh, but how dark and which dark? I mean, this comes up in other places, but these are using teals. All right, I'm gonna lean on digital color meter again. So let's, oh, don't want to view the page source. Oh my gosh. Oh, and I'm all the way zoomed in. There we go. Let's just inspect again, so that way I can force the hover state. And I gotta make sure that happens on the right thing, on the button, and not the div. And now when we zoom in, you can grab that. Same deal. Draw a rectangle, throw it in the back. All right. This is probably one of our teals, something like 800 here. No, too dark. It's another issue with putting these streams off for a while is I, you know, lose my familiarity with the system. All right, well, now that we've got, you know, properties going, let's name those, and I want to be consistent. I'm going to just check out, am I calling it state elsewhere? It looks like it, yeah. I had to check because I often get, oh, hey, we got somebody in the file. Hey, Jared, what's up? Yeah, I get, you know, picky about the property name state because Yeah, I see folks, I've ranted about it in past streams. I'll find it and, link to it in this one if you want to jump to see my rant. But the TLDR is that, folks lump in a lot of stuff into state. I think typically what I see is that they mean for that to mean interactive state, but then they're piling in like, enabled versus disabled. To me, that's a true false, and it should be separate. So yeah. So yeah, we've got our default state. We've got our hover state. And while we're just, while we're here, just back up. Yeah, we need a focus state, and might have that saved as a style even. Well, let's not duplicate that one. We'll duplicate our default state. What effects do we have? Focus visible. Now, I selected that. It didn't show up. That's because we don't have clip contents turned on, nor do we have a fill, right? Oh, that's not even what I wanted to do. I wanted to drop the opacity. This is a silly hack that we have to do. Figma requires when you're using shadows to kind of make your focus rings, there's two requirements. That object, that layer has to have a fill on it, and you have to have clip contents turned on, which is annoying because when your engineers are inspecting on this, they get weird information. Like what's the deal with this background? It's not a color style. What's going on? And you can't do like a fully transparent background. Like I faked this 0 by punching in a really, really tiny decimal. But if I just did straight up 0, oh, okay, that's news to me. I thought just doing 0, wouldn't work. You had to kind of trick it. But or what do I want to say? There's a new way of handling focus states. If you're on the Twitter machine still, Molly Helmuth, who runs a fabulous design system course, recently did a thread, explaining how she does focus state, and it takes advantage of the absolute position. So let's see if that works out. So here's our focus state. Looks like a blue ring, and we have a little bit of a corner radius here. It's probably going to use our main blue. We'll take off the fill. So here's our ring, right? And we can plop it in here, and we can use absolute positioning to then constrain it to all sides and then stretch it to the bounds of the container. Right, and we've got it. Now this is the stroke is on the inside. We probably want it on the outside. So now when you're using this label, just make sure this is working. We'll put some text in here. Yeah, that should work. And of course you can see as I'm stretching it, because of the constraints that we used on, where is this guy? State 3. Frame 11, let's give this a proper name. We'll call this focus ring. And just for fun, I'm going to put auto layout on it just because it makes me feel safe and secure. It doesn't change anything. But yeah. Oh, and that's a lie. It does change things. It looks like we cannot, when auto layout's applied, you cannot use constraints. So actually, with this method, it looks like, my hunch, having auto layout off on your focus ring is maybe the way to go. But yeah, you can see it's working perfectly. Now, here's what I'm interested in. We know that Figma, in their documentation, if you don't want to lose overrides when you're switching variants or swapping components, the layer structure should match. That means the number of layers, the arrangement of layers in the layers panel should be perfectly aligned. And ideally, you also have your layer names being shared across whatever two things you're swapping between. Now, in variants, that's a lot easier to control because you're basically just, you're copy pasting the same thing, right? And then you're just tweaking styling. But for swapping components, it can be a little bit dicier. But let's see, when I change from focus state, which is named, unfortunately, state 3 right now, let's call that focus. this silly override that I did. And let's just override the icon too, just to test it. We'll swap circle plus for one of our sidebar open close icons. If I go to the hover state, will those overrides stay? Because I do have a different layer structure. This one has a focus ring. These do not. Is that enough for Figma to freak out about it? Let's see. Hover. We're good. We've got our overridden icon, our overridden label text, the color changed because we went from focus to hover. So this seems pretty safe. Yeah, cool. We need disabled states. So I will again make a copy of our default, and this is a new property, right? This is a variant, and I will have it. Ooh, actually, I'm just gonna let it be property for now. I just want to check back. Have we done disabled states anywhere else? I want to be consistent with my property names. I don't think so. So there's a couple ways we can name this property. At work lately, I've been doing is enabled, like a question. Like, is this thing enabled? Yes or no? But it's kind of weird. You have to do this like, I mean, you don't have to. I could put a space between is and enabled, and I don't have to have a question mark. But, oh, and I mean to be adjusting the property name, not the value. It might be more clear and more scannable if this is simply enabled, right? That can still kind of act like a question. So for this one, we'll say true. And let's see, for our enabled state, actually, let's close out of that. Or our disabled state, digital color meter. Oh gosh. We'll grab this blue. I just need to, yeah, get familiar with the colors again. Then I'll be going. I wonder if we have this blue yet. This guy, teal 200, teal 300, and it's not blue 200. Okay, interesting. We need to save this as a style. Let's real quick, so you know, I've got two color groups going on here. There's teal and blue. This looks like it's solidly in the blue. You can see that when, let's grab something that's most definitely teal, like this. You can see here, you know, we're shifting a little bit closer to green. So there is a, yeah, if I undo, redo, you can see in the slider here, we're moving around. So I think this is going to get grouped with the blues. And what do I want to name it? We only have 3 blues. There's 900, 500, 200. Might as well make this 100. So we'll call it blue 100. Oh, and why not add a description? I haven't been doing that, but I probably should. Because this, you know, we're only just now discovering this color. It's used in a very specific place. Let's say disabled state for budget table header buttons. Great. Now we can use this. All right. So we've got enabled true state. This is also going to be a default state. These guys are going to be enabled false. And so now when we are using a copy of this, we have our interactive states, and we can also say this is enabled and disabled. While we're here, let's hook these up. There's only one to hook up really while hovering. I do not think there is a pressing state. So if I click down, it's the same as hover. All right, cool. So that gives us the buttons within the divs, which represent cells in a table. By the way, I did not mention this at the beginning. You know, the point, or not the point, but what I'm hoping by inviting folks into the file is that, like, if folks have questions along the way, of course, you don't have to be subscribed to my newsletter to, watch this live and put messages in the YouTube chat. But, we've got this fun cursor chat feature. Hello. Folks who are in the file with me can use that to ask questions, or, if they see me messing something up, it's a good way to get my attention. This is where my eyes are. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat too, but yeah, I'm happy to take questions if folks have them as we go. Okay, cool. Oh, and I seem to have lost my button name. What did we say? Budget, table, header, buttons, something like that. All right, so that takes care of these 4. So now I think we can start constructing this. And I could go ahead and okay, let's inspect again. There's 2, probably infinite, but 2 ways I could see this going. So we've got a class called cell. And it contains a button. That could be its own component, right? Oh, let's go back to design mode. I could wrap this in a frame, this would be called cell. Adjust the styling and whatnot, but then this could be turned into a component for designers to use. And, if somebody was redesigning, reimagining what this table header looked like, they could grab those. Or, and I think that might be actually the way to do it. The alternative would be just componentizing this entire section. But I don't think I want to do that. These cells show up multiple times. They all contain buttons. This structure is the same. I mean, oddly, oh, no, we've got a span, which then contains buttons. Actually, what's that span doing? I guess it's just sort of keeping these, smushed together. Perhaps? I don't know. We'll have to examine that. But yeah, I think it makes sense to have these each, have a cell component. This is also an interface representative. And, okay, something to think about. I know we are focusing on this table header, but something else to think about is eventually we're going to get to this big chunk in the middle here. These are also cells. You can see in the name here, budget, table, cell. So could this component be reused, and should it be reused elsewhere? Yeah, there's all types of cells. So we might have kind of a group of components called table, like table elements or table cells, and then different types of cells. And then maybe there's a subgroup called header cells, right? We'll have to see how far those go. Something else, I'm looking at the time, and let me look at my little stopwatch. Did I even start my stopwatch? I didn't, but we are coming up on, the end of the half hour. That's another thing with these streams. Before I was doing these really long, well, to me they felt long, 1.5 hours, 2 hour, and they were fun, but longer streams. And I think that made it harder for me to commit to doing that regularly, right? I was doing it on the weekends, and it totally depended on what I had going on my personal calendar. So, yeah, I think sticking to an every other week cadence, sticking to shorter streams is going to make this more sustainable for me. But yeah, to honor that schedule, I'm going to cut it off here. As I said, if you want to be in the file with me, you want to get on my email newsletter, sign up for that, and there's a little checkbox that says, yes, I'm interested in getting the poll emails for this. How that works is at the end of each stream, I'm going to send folks who opted into that the poll for the next session, so that way they can vote on what they want to see me work on, and then a recap of what happened in this session, just in case folks miss it, because not everybody's available during this specific half hour. So a recap, link to the published stream, opportunity to vote in the next in the next one, and then, you know, a view access link for every time I'm streaming. Cool. Yeah. Anything I mentioned in this stream, I'm going to be cleaning up the description and putting in timestamps, links to stuff I mentioned. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for joining. And the next one will be February, let's see, 16th. So if you sign up within the next week-ish, you can vote in